So today, um, I started to read the Bible. For the past couple of videos, I started talking about how I want to be able to, find myself, understand why people hold the Bible, in such high regard, and how people are able to base their lifestyles on it. And my preconceived notion of the Bible was that, oh, it's just a book that would just tell me about all these like commandments, like be a good person, don't do bad things, don't steal, and like those are things that I already knew growing up. So I would say that religion, in some sort of way, already has affected me because it's made me who I am. Maybe it's someone who doesn't want to do bad things because I understand there are consequences in that. If I were to hurt someone, what do I gain from this? I can be better from this. I can do better. But I would say that just since I was a kid, I just didn't have interest in religion or the Bible at all, and I have a family that is, I would say, quite interested and is quite, I guess, adamant in me and my siblings to get into the Bible. Because something that they were raised on. These are beliefs that they want to push onto me, and that's one of the reasons why I didn't even want to start, reading about the Bible. I didn't even have an interest. Anytime somebody would bring up anything religious, I would just like brush. I was like, oh, look at them trying to be all, morally high and like trying to, show that they're like more educated, that they're better than me. And I would say I felt that way because I was very insecure about who I was and what I wanted to be, and how having to see people around my age or even younger than me see that they're able to get and learn more things than me, able to attain more information, and it made me feel like I was inferior to them. And I would say now I've grown up, I've developed like an understanding of why people want to follow this religion and why people hold it in such high regard, as I said before. And I started thinking, what, I'm gonna read it because I can't be ignorant, I can't be angry, at these people for something that they believe in that I don't even, that I myself don't even understand completely at all. Um, and I didn't like how many of the people that I knew of, or just knew entirely, that they would really be trying to be quite pushy about having to make me read the Bible. Like my parents, they really want me to like get into the Bible, get into religion, and get into all these kind of things because they saw it as like if you don't do this, you're like limiting how far you can get in life, and you're able to go to heaven, and you go to hell, go all these kind of things. And like I said before, I was already raised on these beliefs, so I was quite scared, to go to hell and all these kind of things. So I would say a story I had as a sorry, an experience I had as a kid was that I used to pray a lot. If anything, I would say I prayed to the point where being maybe I won't even say unhealthy, but I was I was scared of God because I knew that all the time He would be watching me, and if I did these bad things or the things that were like lustful or like evil, like stealing something, then I would go to hell, and I'd be terrified every day to just like wake up because I always knew that God would be there watching me. I didn't know where He was. And it scared me because I felt that I didn't have control over my life, that I wasn't able to go out and do things and experience things that I, made the choice and understood the consequences for, of which you could say is quite stupid because, I was a kid, and if I did bad things, maybe I tried to blame on other people, like my younger sibling or someone like that. But I truly was terrified, and that to the point where I would be scared to like even do things that I thought would be remotely bad, like curse. I want to be able to express myself, and obviously, you can express yourself, in ways that are not cursing. But cursing has just become something that's become such like a norm for me, And I would say now I understand that if anything, people who curse a lot, they sound quite stupid. Especially people who just they curse and they speak a lot. Like I feel like their words have less meaning, if that makes any sense. It's quite weird phenomenon that I come to understand. I feel like I hold people in high regard when they're able to speak less, but if they speak less, at least their words sort of have more of an impact because when you speak at that point, you must have something very important and concise to say in a conversation. Sorry, I got a bit off topic, but yeah, I was scared to really like, go out there in the world, experience things. I didn't want to go to hell and all these kind of things like that. I would wake up like terrified. This is something that I didn't want to have my parents to know about because they're raising me on these beliefs that God is this great spirit being. As you follow, and as long as you follow His teachings, then you'll be fine and everything will be great and dandy. Um, and now I just think that it's something that I sort of held as a preconceived notion because I feel like I was holding myself back, not learning about this religion, and these kind of things, these ideologies and stuff like that. And now I want to be able to, get out there, go in the world, experience things. Because, I mean, honestly, I think it'd be amazing and quite fun if I'd be able to debate people as to why they believe, their religion or some sort of other belief system, or just, why they would quote this sort of part of the Bible, and what it means to them and what it means to me, and why I think it would be negative, positive, I don't know, weird, something like that. That's one of the reasons why I genuinely want to read it, and so I have an interest of learning about this because it's something that I, held like in such like sort of disgust. I would say for a good portion of my life, and now I want to understand. I want to read it, and I want to see how this may also impact my life and how it impacted many others. Because it's really interesting that this book, from hundreds, maybe even thousands of years ago, has stood the test in time, and people believe, and they preach these things. They go to church, and they spend their whole lives, living for the day that they'll they die, and have all their hardships rewarded with them going to heaven, or having their blasphemous deeds going to hell, and having to suffer. um, and I do feel like many of the people who do believe in this religion, or just read the Bible, I feel like they don't read it because they have a genuine interest. And I feel that many of the people who even read it themselves, they call themselves followers, and I don't think they really are. Because some of the most like toxic people I've ever met were people that they said that they that they read the Bible, that they're good people because they go and do all these things at church, and yet they're some of the most like disgusting, like rotten people. I'm not saying everyone like that is that studies this religion or lives by it, lives by it, if anything. But they just so happen to be not too good people, and I feel like they use like this religion as like a way to coerce themselves and other people into doing things that they would see as bad, but I'm doing this in the name of God, things like that. Or especially in the news, where there are many politicians and a president who uses a certain religion in order to get a lot of followers and devote people to understand that, oh, this man is a great person, and he's doing all these great things, and yet he's exploiting people who follow this religion because this is something that they've been raised on, and what this country, I guess you could say, has also been raised on, and now they're using it to their advantage to get a lot of funds to hide many lists and news and very important information that people should know, but yet is being held down by the fact that our president is religious and that he sees himself as a god for some reason, which I don't want to get too much into it, but I think it's just crazy how much of a stranglehold our religion really has on this country, my home. And I want to see why and what makes people do these things and believe these things. And this is one of the reasons why I picked up the Bible, because it's genuinely interesting. Like, there are many people who live different facets of life, different places in the world, and yet they're able to come together and understand that we read this one book, we follow his teachings, God's teachings, and this is who we've become, this is who we want to be, this is the change we want to make in the world. And it genuinely is really interesting. And I don't want to sound like I'm preaching myself, because I know when I was a kid, I'd hate to hear people preaching about it, because I felt like they were just shoving these things down my throat as information, and I didn't care. But yeah, I really wanted to make this video because I thought it'd be really interesting and quite important, especially if I was a kid, to understand that once I got older, I'd be reading the Bible out of my own volition, rather than that being forced, and having to being forced to go to church, something that I really didn't care for. And it's just really interesting that I want to see what this can do for my life and what it did for other people. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya. Thank you for watching.